Let me hear some more of that rock and roll music. Any old way you choose it. It's got a backbeat, you can't lose it. Any old time you use it. Gotta be rock roll music. If you wanna dance with me. If you wanna dance with me. I got no kick against modern jazz, unless they try to play it too darn fast. Lose the beauty of the melody until it sounds just like a symphony. That's why I go for that rock and roll music. Rock and roll music. Any old way you choose it. Rock and roll music. It's got a backbeat, you can't lose it. Rock and roll music. Any old time you use it. Rock and roll music. Gotta be rock roll music. If you wanna dance with me. If you wanna dance with me. All right, okay. Good morning. I said good morning. That's better, all right. Beats being in class, right? Right, okay. Well, we are Rock Roots, and it's a pleasure to have all you people here while we're taping this for PBS. And what we're going to be doing this morning is, of course, playing some rock and roll music. But let me ask a quick question. How many of you kids listen to some form of modern music? Almost everyone. None of the teachers do, you'll notice, though, but that's a always interesting fact. Good, I'm glad you do. Well, what we're going to do is not only play some of this music, but more importantly, teach you about where it came from, how it developed over many, many years. And what you're going to find out is that the development of American pop music really parallels the history and growth of our country, all right? Now, when we started playing that old song from Chuck Berry, I saw people moving around, clapping, screaming. What is it about this kind of music that makes you want to get up and move? What is it about rock and roll music that makes you want to get up and dance? Right there. All right, the beat, very good, the rhythm. So if we want to trace the roots and rhythms of this kind of music, we've got to go back. Back before they had electric guitars, back before they had tapes, and CDs, and cassettes. And everyone close your eyes now and imagine the world before they had MTV.
Oh, geez. How'd they have any fun?
Oh, gosh. Well, back many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, when your ancestors and our ancestors came to this country from Europe and Asia, Africa, the Far East, the Middle East. Matter of fact, how many people know in your family, maybe your grandparents, that have family members that came from another country, that you know where they came from? All right, see, almost everyone. See, when they came here for either religious freedom or political freedom or economic opportunity, all right, they didn't become Americans overnight. They brought with them their own culture from their home country. Now, can someone give me a quick definition of culture? Now, I know you've had this in social studies. Come on. Teachers, you should be proud. They're volunteering their answers so readily. Of course, it's the traditions, the way of life. So when people came to this country, they brought with them their traditions from the home country. It could be their food, their clothing, their art, their beliefs, their values, and their music. And the music they made was recreational. It was dance music. It was music for fun. After they had worked a long, hard work week, they'd want to cut back and relax. Now, Dave's family came from Ireland. Do we have any Irish kids out here by any chance this morning? All right, then you're going to love this. Dave.
Ah, bless me lucky charms. Well, I always wondered about this music. They didn't have the things that we have today, like tapes and records. How did they learn this music? Well, the only way they could pick up on this great acoustic music was from somebody in their family, or perhaps somebody in their church, but basically it was all in a very small community. The music was passed around amongst friends and family. And they did play acoustic instruments, like I mentioned. This happens to be an acoustic mandolin. Rick's going to play the acoustic guitar. And we're going to play a little bit of Irish dance music right for you now, and you're still going to hear that strong dance beat. Goes like Thanks.
Thank you, boys. That was very good. One of the most important roots of rock and roll is something called the blues. It's not just a style of music, but it's a way of feeling as well, and I hope nobody here has the blues, but they say the blues sometimes feels like this. Aw. The Delta blues actually started down south in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, along parts of the Mississippi River, and typically what would happen would be that a black musician would get an old guitar and start to strum and sing in a solo style to entertain friends and perform at some of those house parties going on.
Well, along came an invention that started getting this great Delta blues music out to a lot more people. And it's something that really we take for granted nowadays. How many of you still have a stack of records at home? All right, good. Hang on to them, all right? Well, anyway, these early records, 78 records, big, heavy platters. They were so good, people took bites out of them, apparently. Too bad. Only one song on each side, but it made it possible for the first time in American musical history to record a black blues musician in a hotel in Alabama and hear this person totally outside of your community in the big cities where a lot of folks had moved to get work. Now, one of the signatures of this Delta style is a thing called bottleneck guitar or slide guitar. Now, you see Rick has this metal thing on his guitar. He gets to get a great slide sound on that. Actually, they did chop off the top of a bottle to get that sound. Now, we're going to do a little bit of this Delta blues right now. This one's called the Spoonful Blues. And it goes like this. Could be a spoonful of coffee. It could be a spoonful of tea. A spoonful of my baby's precious love that can satisfy me. It could be a spoonful of water, safe from the desert sand. A spoonful of lead from a 45 that'll save you from another man. They're talking about that spoonful, crying about a spoonful, lying about a spoonful, 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 spoonful. Now Rick's gonna play a Delta style for you.
How did we get started?
We got here a couple hours ago, and now we're tired and ready to go home.
That's right. Well, actually, I was asked to do a series of concerts by the Philadelphia Folk Song Society, and they wanted a concept, just not to come up and play music for the kids. And they said, well, make it folk music. And I kind of reflected on what my folk music is, not only the older stuff that is considered folk music, but in my case, I was brought up on the Beatles and Motown and things like that, so I felt it would be a great idea to incorporate that to the kids and give them a kind of a history lesson. We brought that concept back together. Rick and I have been playing together for a long time and kind of broadened it out and called upon his rock and roll roots as well as my American folk music roots, and we kind of put it together.
Yeah, I was teaching school at the time when we first started Rock Roots. I was also working with Jay and the Techniques, so we periodically we did a show here and a show there for about a year and a half, I guess. And Bo Jones, who works along with me, bass player, he joined up with us, and After about a year and a half, we saw that we were getting enough work. We hooked in with Young Audiences, who's an educational booking agency. They bring all kinds of entertainment that has some educational, cultural content. So the big job we had was to not make it a rock and roll concert or a folk concert. It had to have enough music, but it had to have enough content of history, geography, politics. And while we were initially, I think, aimed it for junior and senior high school, now we're going K through 12th grade and just kind of changing it a little bit here and there.
Great. Well, you know, this great blues music took a trip down the Mississippi River to a wonderful musical city near the Gulf of Mexico for extra credit. What's the name of that city? Over here. What do you think? New Orleans. All right. He gets out of school for the rest of the year. He says, yeah. Well, that's great. Sure enough. But when they got down to this big city, these solo musicians started bumping into each other. They said, you know, we could have a lot more fun if we formed a band. Sure enough, early on, it was called ragtime music or Dixieland swing. And really, in the 1930s and 40s, it became what we would say the rock and roll music for a whole generation with a thing called big band swing. Now, what kind of instruments would you find in a big band? Raise your hand. What do you think? Guitar. Well, I'm glad you said that right off the top because no. I'll tell you why. Because they had acoustic instruments back then. The guitars they made back then were basically what they call parlor instruments. They could only be heard in a small room, so you couldn't hear it amongst all those other brass instruments. I'm glad you said that, though. What else? What other instruments? Well, over here, what do you think? A drum, yeah, the drummer. All right, Billy. All right, he's so glad you said that. What about something else? Over here.
The trumpet.
Trumpet, very good. What's some other brass instruments? Back there, yeah.
Trombone.
Trombone, right. Come on, we're cooking now. Let's get some more.
The saxophone.
Yeah, saxophone, right. What's the bass member of the brass family?
Tuba.
Tuba, you're right. Now, not only would they have maybe one saxophone, but they might have 3 or 4, all right?
Got Hub.
We forgot the piano player. Come on, over here. What, say piano.
The piano.
Piano! All right, great. And like I said, they'd have sections of these players, 3 or 4 saxophone players, a great danceable sound. In fact, thousands of people would come dance to bands like Duke Ellington and Count Basie. But there was one gentleman who was originally from New Orleans, brought something revolutionary to this great American music. His name was Louis Armstrong, and he introduced a thing called improvisation. Now, I'm actually going to ask one of the teachers back there, when you come to the school in the morning and you have to improvise, what does that mean for you? What do you do when you improvise?
I make it up as I go along.
See, there's a teacher that admits it. All right, that's good to see. Sure enough, so Louis Armstrong would invite perhaps the trombone player to come up, and he would make things up on the spot using his musical knowledge on his instrument. He would improvise, and that's something exciting that's still used in jazz and rock and roll today. Well, we've spared no expense here at PBS to bring you the best. We have with us today the Rock Roots Brass Section. Here they come now.
Give it up, give it up, give it up. Doesn't get any better, friends.
Hard times in the television industry. Well, we're going to do a little bit of this Dixieland swing now, the tune called Charlie Stone, the man with a slide trombone, and he can help us with a little bit of this. 1, 2, you know what to do. I know a fool that come from way down south. His name is Charlie Stone. He makes his living going around New Orleans. He's blowing on a slide trombone. He can make it moan, make it sing. Somebody tell me, where'd you get that thing? Play on stone, blow on that slide trombone. Yes, yes. 'Cause when he plays at home, way downtown, all the good folks, oh, they gather around just to hear old Stone blowing on a slide trombone. Now my friend Hub's gonna improvise on that old piano. that horn to his lips. Woo! All the teachers shake their hips when they hear Old Stone blowing on a slide trombone. Here comes Charlie now. Listen up now. Stone, blow on that slide trombone. Yeah, Charlie Stone, blow on that slide trombone.
Yes.
The kids are great to play in front of. In spite of the fact that they have so much media forced upon them, trying to shape what they think rock and roll is, they still are very accessible to new ideas and history and all that other stuff thrown in. They definitely, once we open up the idea that this music came from various other elements, they're very excited about the roots.
Yeah, I think too you know, it's the same way when I was teaching regular school, to try to bring as many disciplines in at one time. I think that's real important. When we're dealing with older kids, and we can weave in how this music was affected by the political situation, the civil rights situation, for example, it's really a history lesson. Rock roots could be part of a history course. It could also be part of a music curriculum. And I think what Dave was saying, the kids are bombarded by media. It takes them a while to understand what live music is, and especially when it's not at mega decibels, you know, because we have small equipment. We're in and out of a lot of schools very quickly. But once the ice is broken and they realize that, hey, live musicians can make mistakes, they can have fun, you know, they can interact with us, I think they really like it. Now, as Dave said, this big band music was really the rock and roll of its day, as thousands of people would be dancing to this stuff. But as we moved into the 30s and the 40s, around the time of World War II, people, of course, wanted to dance and have a good time, get their mind off of some of that stress and tension. But this big band music was very expensive music to keep around, because you had 16, 18, or 20 people. You needed clothing, food, transportation, hotels, all right? And as I said, it was a very expensive kind of music. And something came along, or something was developed, invented, that really radically altered the music, changed the sound, changed the style, and would eventually lead directly to rock and roll. And that, of course, was the electric guitar, all right? Because as Dave mentioned earlier, the acoustic guitars were parlor instruments. They were very quiet. But with the pickups and the amplifiers, you could go from a background sound to the more powerful. So the bands could get smaller. You could have 4 or 5 people and still have a hard driving kind of sound. The guitar became, instead of a background instrument, it became a lead instrument, all right? Going to a sound that you're kind of familiar with, something like this. All right, so the guitar became the forefront of the ensemble, or of the combo. Now, some of the great blues artists, some of them are still around today. How many people have heard of B.B. King? All right. Now, just last year, a gentleman by the name of John Lee Hooker won a Grammy, and he's about 74 years old. People like John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, they took their blues knowledge, they adapted it to the new electric instrument and developed a sound called rhythm and blues around cities like Chicago and Memphis. Now, radio carried this music all across America. They didn't have TVs yet, but it was in most homes via radio. So we're going to go back about 50 years, but you're still going to hear some of the same sounds and rhythms that a lot of traditional rock bands use today.
One is 2, and 2 and 2 is 4. I'm going to Chicago now. Don't you want to go? Come on. Baby, don't you want to go? Well, come on.
sweet home Chicago.
2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 is 8. I'm going to Chicago and I'm not gonna wait. Come on,
Baby, don't you wanna go?
all right.
Well, come on, baby, don't you wanna go?
Back to that
Living Life City, sweet home Chicago. Come
Play for
on.
PB. You can help us out now.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Well, come on, baby, don't you wanna go?
To that living
Life City, sweet home Chicago.
The 1940s.
Yeah.
What war happened then? And then
Civil
we
War,
get the Civil
Revolutionary
War,
War. Oh yeah, that's
the Romulan War.
That's the surprising thing, the quality of some of the education. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not, it's, you know, coming from a perspective of having taught too, it's got to be some of the things, some of the schools we play in are insurmountable, the odds that are against these kids. We've gone into schools with armed guards, with guns, and we played what was the one girls' school, it was like the last step before prison. And we had a great time, they had a great time. You know, obviously, we're, you know, this is a non-threatening atmosphere we're doing, but it's just, it's really, it's always wrenching when you go and you realize that for a lot of these kids, even though they may not like school, school might be the best part of their day compared to what they have to go home to, or what they don't have to go home to.
At about the same time period, the 1930s and 1940s, and soon thereafter, there was another kind of music going on being played by rural white musicians. Now, it didn't feature that hard, driving rhythm of the black music. Instead, it had sweet little melodies and harmonies and little stories depicting the lifestyles of these rural white people. And if I recollect, they call that country music. You know what I mean? Country
Well,
music.
I was told that y'all were fans of country music.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I could be mistaken. But I'm going to tell y'all how to appreciate country music, because you got to get out of that city frame of mind, you know? You got to lay back a little bit. I want y'all to lay back a little bit. Oh, no, not pass out, but lay back, all right? All right, we're just laying back a little bit, you know, and then you turn on your country music station out of Wheeling, West Virginia, or out of Nashville, Tennessee. Y'all be listening to the Grand Ole Opry or the Louisiana Hayride. Here are some of your favorite country artists. And I'll tell you, y'all be so turned on by that music, you just couldn't help yourself. You just go, yeah! Let me hear y'all. Yeah! Oh, now, come on. Let's get a little more country than that. Let's hear y'all again. Yeah! See, I told you they like country music. All right. Well, I got my country band here. I got my banjo. I got the boys in the band. Y'all ready, boys? All right. This is a sprightly little bluegrass tune. You might want to go to a square dance, too. Goes like this. It's like a train roll out of the mountain. A little sprightly tune. 1, 2, 4. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. I'm gonna lay around the shack till my man train comes back and roll in my sweet baby's arms. Well, mother is a machine operator. Sister can weave and can spin. But Pop owns a share in that old cotton mill. Watch that old money roll in. Come on now. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. All right. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. I'm gonna lay around the shack till my man train comes back and roll in my sweet
to the